Hey everybody, Patty Ann here. Hey, I've got some knife tool tips to tell you about today. Maybe you already know these, but in case you don't, I think you're really going to like them. So you have to have the designer edition and above in Silhouette Studio. And remember, I use this for my Silhouette machines and I also use it for my Cricut machines. If you want to try it out, I have links for the free version down below that you can try. If you have a Cricut machine and you want to use it with your Cricut, you will have to get the business edition. It's just a one-time fee. Once you pay it, it's yours to keep forever. And I make tons and tons of tutorials for you. I have a monthly class as well. But anyway, let me get to this tool tip. So let's go down here and grab the knife tool on the lower left-hand corner. And it's right here. Click on that. And I'm going to have it stay at solid. I'm just going to have it stay right now at straight, a straight line. And I'm going to uncheck auto apply. So I'm going to start, I'm going to grab the arrow, the select tool again. I'm going to start with this rectangle right here. Maybe I'll make it a tiny bit bigger so you can see it easily. So again, I have the knife tool selected, solid, straight, auto apply, unchecked. Just going to come over here and draw across this. Now notice I can draw really crooked if that's what I want to do, draw at an angle. But the moment I hit the shift key on my keyboard, it's going to pop it to straight across horizontally. See that? So if you really want one that goes straight across perfectly, hold down your shift key to do that. Once you've done that, you can just say apply. And what that's done is it's cut that apart right like that. Going to do the undo to get back to where it was. I'm going to do the knife tool again. And this time I'm going to hold down my shift key and go across. But rather than saying apply right now, I'm going to come way over here to this icon, the fourth one down. If you hover over it, it says line style panel. Going to click on that to open it. And with this panel open, notice here it says thickness. That's how thick that knife line is that I made. So if I up the knife line, it's going to make a very, very thick cut. And let me show you that now. I'll say apply, and look at the big, thick cut it made between those. And then oppositely, I can grab the knife tool, hold down my shift key to make a nice slice, and go across. And I can change my thickness to 0 and it'll still cut perfectly. Say apply. You can't even tell that anything's been cut, but it definitely has. So why is that important? It's because the pieces that the knife tool covers have actually been cut out of the object. And let me show you. I'll delete this. Let's bring over this black star. Now if you have designer edition or above, you get all these different colored or shapes that you can use. And remember, there's lots of things you can do with these. This button here makes it larger. This one determines how close in or close or out your little star edges will be. And this one that looks like a zipper to me changes how many there are. Look at that. So this tool is really cool. I love this software. If you don't have it, I highly recommend you try it. Again, I have the link to the free one down below. But let's see what's going to happen now. Let's make this bigger so you can really see what's going to happen on this leg of the star when I use the knife tool. So we'll do, first of all, we'll grab the knife tool and we'll cut this off and we'll leave that at the default. I didn't hold the shift key down, so notice it's going at an angle, but that's okay. The next one I'm going to do is this knife tool, draw one across. This one I'm going to make the smaller using the line style panel again. I'm going to make the thickness to 0 on that one. The third one I'm going to do, I'm going to make the thickness quite a bit higher on that one. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply these. So I'll apply this top one first, just click apply. I'll apply this one, and I think I can do them all three at the same time, but I'm not going to. And this one I'll apply as well. Now notice something that's happened. They look kind of different, right? Here's the one that was the default. Let's scroll way in, let's see if we can see. Okay, here's the one that was the default. You can't even see the one that I made to the 0, and this is the one that I fattened up. So let's see what happens when we try to put these pieces back together, as if we had to make a cut in this to fit on two different pages if we were doing a print then cut, or even just cutting up large shapes that you want to put back together. So let's see about this one. Can we just use the arrow key and move this down? Let's scroll in one more time. Okay, and scroll this down with my arrow keys on my keyboard, and does it match up? Well, at the default, you'll notice when I just made it go down, look at this, it doesn't fit perfectly because of that little bit that you sliced or cut out with the knife tool. So that didn't work very well. Let's try this big one right here. Let's try to bring the star up, this part of the star up, and see if we can get it to match. Again, using the arrow keys, just moving it up, and look at that. You can see this. It will not match anymore because we cut some out of it, right? When we use the knife tool. So if you were to try to put these together, you're going to have this little jog right here. But remember, there's that one that I put on 0. So let's see about that one. There's that cut right there. This was the one that was 0. This was the default. This was the larger one right here. And this one was 0. Now let's see if we can bring that down. And I moved it to the side a little bit, so I'm going to have to use both my arrows. But this one will fit perfectly like that. And let's see, you cannot even see where that was cut. It looks perfect, right? So that's really something important to know about the knife tool. Whoops, depending on what you're going to do with it. So let's get rid of this star for a second. And before I show you my final thing where I'll show you how I use this with something like Mini, I wanted to show you something else as well. So let's scroll in on this star. And let's do... Now I'll do this last because this is a little different topic. So let's scroll back out. Let's go back. Let's get Mini now. Okay. Let's just pretend that we are making her so big that we have to cut her bow. Okay. So if I get the knife tool out, and again, I'll do the default first. And I want to make sure that I'm going through some of those circles so you can see what's going to happen. So there's one. Let's do the let me move the default one up here because I had that on top before. There's the default. Now let's do the one that's 0. So again, I'm going to make this go through some circles so you can see how this works. This one I'm going to come over to the line style, and I'm going to change the thickness to 0. Okay, we're going to do one more, and we'll make this one go through some lines or circles as well. And this one is the one I'm going to make chubbier, like that. Okay, so let's go one by one and do these again. So I'm going to click on this one. Once it's clicked on, I can say apply. I'm going to click on this one. That's the default one. This one is the one that I made 0 for the line thickness. And this one is obviously the one I made very chunky. All right, so you're wondering what difference does that make? I'm going to show you right now the difference that this can make if you're doing a larger than matte print then cut. So pretend I had to cut these apart so it would fit on my paper. If I take this piece with the one that I chose, the large knife, the thick knife, when I use my arrow keys to move that down, and maybe I have to move them both ways like this, look what's happening to those circles. No matter what I try to do to the dots on Minnie's bow, they're distorted, right? All right, let's try. Now it's going to be harder to see this one probably, but let's go over here to the left-hand side. I'll scroll way in so maybe you can see it better. This is the one that was default, at the default thickness. I'm going to use my arrow keys again to move this down. All right, that one looks pretty good, except a little bit of the edge of this particular one is cut off. Did you notice that? So that's not bad. Oh, I see the sides are kind of crazy. Let's see. Okay. Well, again, look at this right here. Look at this jog. It's never going to fit up perfectly. I fit this side up perfectly, but this side, because of what was taken out by the knife tool, let's see if I can fix that. I'm lining up the left-hand side and seeing if I can make it. Nope, it's still got a jog over here. Notice that? All right, so let's scroll out and let's go back now and look at this one that I did that was the 0. I can't even see for sure where it is. Okay, this must be the one that's the 0 right here on this side. So I'm going to take that apart, because notice it was cut with the 0 line. Remember, this was default 0 and chunky line. Now let's see if we can use our arrow key to put this back together as if we're gluing or taping it back together, because we're making a larger than matte piece. So I'm going to group these two pieces. Oops. I'm going to bring this piece up so you can see the total difference. We'll just look on the left hand side of Minnie's bow. So I'm lining up the left hand side of everything. All right, oh, that's not lined up. There we go. All right, so we're going to check this out. Look at the left-hand side of Minnie's bow. Notice the left-hand side of everything is matching up beautifully. We do have a little bit of an issue with the default line size right here, but we also have a problem here. When you look at the one that's the 0, and remember, let me show you again. So one was the default, and then this one I made the thickness on 0, and this one I made very large. So the 0 one works perfectly, and the large one, no matter what I try, I can line it up on the left. Some of this is gone. This is mismatched as well as that. So that's just a really terrific thing to know now if you're going to be making things that are larger than your mat, print then cut, and you want to be able to reassemble them perfectly. All right, so that's that. Using the line thickness for your knife tool. So let's do this final thing I wanted to show you. Let's assume, this is something else you can do with the line tool over there, or the line style panel. Let's first go ahead and offset this. So I'm going to say offset by hitting the offset panel. Offset. And remember that you can always make your offset rounded or squared, whichever you like. Maybe you can see what's happening on the tip when I do that. Here's, oopsie, let's see, go back to this. Let's go back to, all right, let's get rid of this offset for a second so I'm scrolled in so you can see it. All right, here's the original star, and I'm going to offset it. Right now it's on rounded. You see how this is sort of rounded? Or you can do corner, which makes it have a flat bit. So we'll just leave that one at rounded. I'm going to scroll back out. So what I wanted to show you, something else you can do with this line style panel, is this. Let's make this one red because by default red is the cutting color. The line is red. That means it's going to cut. I'm going to change this one's line color to green, just so it has a different line color. And also what I'm going to do with that one that I just changed to green is I'm going to come over here. I have the inner part selected, and I know that because it's blue and it's a green up here for the line color. I'm going to come over to the line style panel, and right here I can change the style of that green. So maybe I should scroll way in again so you can see what's happening. It's hard to see. Let me make this star a different color. All right, now you can almost see right there that there's a dashed line around that. So why in the world might I want to do this? Well, you've seen people that have those kind of, what are they called? You know, those things you put through your Big Shot or whatever, dies, the die cuts, and they make this nice little indentation here. Well, if you don't want to do the indentation because you don't want to purchase all those really expensive dies, you can have your machine print these on there or draw them on there, and let me show you. So let's scroll out, and I'm going to group both of these and move this stuff out of the way right now and put this over on my mat and make it small enough so it'll fit. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how this would work. I will go to send. Usually it comes in as simple. And notice if I leave it at simple, it's going to cut all of this stuff. It's going to make these dashed cuts and it's going to cut out the star. However, if I go to line, notice there are 3 different colors of line colors. I'm going to get rid of the black one because that has to do with stuff that's off the mat. And what I would do, let's say I'm going to cut this out of cardstock, and this also out of cardstock. But this one I'm going to cut. So I would say cut. And this one I'm going to sketch. So what I would do is this. I always sketch first. So I would uncheck the cut line, put the pen in my machine, and it would beautifully sketch this dashed line all around here. After that's done, I would then cut it, and I would have that really neat looking stitched look. So let's go back to the design again, and let's click on let's ungroup it, and click on the star with the green right here. Now I can change this here if I want to. I could change this to make it a bigger line. I could make it to larger like that so I can see it. If I make it really large, I think my pen will actually go around a couple of times. Let's send. But this is just something that you can test yourself later to see what will happen here. So I would draw first or sketch. When that's completed, I could do this. Okay, now that's really close. So, you know, on my offset, I may have wanted to offset a bigger amount. Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you about this tool is the line tool. Is let's say we have, I guess I'll just do a rectangle again. And let's just imagine that we want to do some cuts on here, but instead of just doing straight cuts across, let's go to the knife tool and go, instead of straight, let's try square. So I can just come over here and just draw squares across here, and hopefully you can see that. Let's scroll in. Okay, you can see those now, hopefully. And maybe I want to duplicate that and make the same thing down below. So I could hit Control on my keyboard and the D for duplicate, and then use the arrow key to drop it down below. And let's see, maybe I'm going to control and duplicate it one more time and just drop it straight down below with my arrow key on my keyboard. Now, I want you to notice something that's happening. If I was to cut these right now, they're going to cut differently because you can see the cut's going to start right here and go down and across. Here, it's going to have a little bit more of that uppity up square, and here a little bit more. And let's imagine I want them all to be exactly the same cuts, right? And actually before that, how about I click on this one, hold down my shift key, click on this one and this one, and then come over here to the transform panel, and I want to transform them vertically, which means they're going to be spaced vertically perfectly. Watch when I click on this and them jump. See that? Now they're spaced perfectly. Now, as I said, remember, let's pretend we want them all to be exactly the same on the left. So I can grab all three of these and align them left. And look what that did. Now when these cut, they will all cut exactly the same. And if I wanted to, I can move this up so it looks pretty much the same as the bottom. So let's go ahead and cut these and see what happens. These are all on the default. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and change these to the line, and I'm going to all make them 0. So when I cut them, it's not even going to look like anything cut. So with all of those selected now, I'm going to say apply. Well, the line still shows up, but it doesn't seem as if they're cut. But check this out. Pull that apart. And they're all going to look exactly the same. How cool is that? Isn't that neat? Wouldn't that be fun to use for something? And of course, I could have fixed this so that little line doopy-doo-doop thing didn't show. If I want to, maybe I'll just go with the line and make it straight again and just line it up as best I can, make it straight. Since auto apply is not checked, guess what I can do right now? Since this isn't lined up perfectly with where I want it to be, since auto apply is not checked, I can use the arrow key on my keyboard and look at me moving that little red cut line perfectly like that. Then say apply, and now I can make this side look perfectly straight like that. So anyway, these were just a few tips that I wanted to tell you about with this knife tool. My favorite thing that I think you'll like the best is when you're cutting something for larger than matte. Say, let's say, file. I'll go to my library and bring in something. Okay, I brought this image in from my library and I have it set up to be a print then cut. Let's pretend, because I don't really want to make one of these larger than my mat, but let's imagine we need to cut her apart so that she can be larger than the mat. And again, the beauty of using this software as opposed to just using Design Space for your Cricut is that you can make really nice, precise cuts. So I'm going to go to the knife tool, make sure auto apply is off. I have it on outline and poly. So I'm just going to start here and begin cutting through here. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time to do this. Every time I click, it's adding a new little node so that my machine is going to know where to cut. So as you know, in Design Space, of course, if you were to cut this in half for something larger than matte, all that you can use is the slice tool, which makes it look a lot more noticeable when you actually go ahead and glue or tape these pieces together. As I've shown in lots of my videos, I show how to use the popsicle sticks inside to give it stability. Okay, there's what I've done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this because I don't want it to be at the default like we've been learning. I'm going to come over here to the line style panel and change the thickness of this to 0 so that it really doesn't take away any of the image. And I'll say apply. So there we have the two cut pieces. Now I'm going to scroll back out and I'm going to pretend that I had to put these on two separate pieces, right? Because they're too large to fit. So that and that. So now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to print this. And let's make sure I have the right printer. I do. Preferences. I'm going to make my preferences just standard rather than high, since this is just a demo for you guys. And by the way, a lot of times when I make these demos, that's why I really appreciate when you use my links down below, because it helps me to buy ink for my demonstrations and that kind of stuff, a cardstock, blah, blah. Okay, print. Oh, look, it's low on ink as it is. So black ink is low. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. All right. So it says my black ink is low. Anyway, I'm going to print that out, and I'll then put it on my mat, and I'll cut it, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I've already printed on my computer. Notice it printed the registration lines, and then I sent this to my portrait to be cut. It read these registration lines, and then it knew exactly where she had been printed. So now I should be able to take this right off of here like that, and take her off of here like this. And let me move this star. I'll tell you about that in one sec. But now I can put her together perfectly, just like that, and you really can't even see where I've cut her. So of course I would do this like this and tape her together on the back, just like that. And it's so great, you guys. You gotta have this. Anyway, that's how cute she would look. And the thing that I had shown you before was something like a star that you could go ahead and have your Cricut or your silhouette machine go ahead and sketch in these dashed lines. So that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you learned some new things about using the knife tool and how terrific it is to combine it with the line style panel so that you can make your cuts really, really fine. I mean, that is just, you cannot honestly even tell. And then again, you can do it, use that line style to put different line shapes. And there are many more than just this particular dash on shapes. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll check out my links down below. And subscribe if you're not subscribed. Leave your comments. Please give me a thumbs up. It really encourages me to continue. So thanks again. Bye-bye.